So is it possible for a human to fall in love with a humanoid robot? I would argue yes. It is possible. And if we look at even these very rudimentary sex robots, are there people that are in love with the current generation of sex robots? Yes, we do have, despite them being very rudimentary at this point, we do have sex robots. You can today go out and buy a sex robot.
Hey, welcome to the show, Unlatched Mind. My guest today is Dr. David Wahl. Dr. Wahl is a social psychologist and sex researcher. So he had written a blog on sex robots, basically, and it was a great discussion. I mean, we talked about all things, the societal impact of these things coming, the future of this technology, and a little bit of artificial intelligence and robotics. So really cool discussion. It makes you think on the where the future's headed. We get some interesting times ahead, I'd say. So anyway, let's just jump in. Dr. David Wahl. So Dr. Wahl, I really appreciate your time. Before we jump into the concept of sex robots, could you, give the listeners a little bio on yourself and who you are and what you do?
Sure. I'm a social psychologist and a sex researcher. I do research on all aspects of human sexuality. I have endless interest when it comes to the topic. And this really started, we go all the way back to first grade. My best friend had found his father's stash of adult magazines and brought them onto the school bus in first grade. And 5, 6 of us boys sat in the back of the bus. And while the other guys were busy looking at all the pictures, I was the one who played into the old joke of I only look at it for the articles, which is what I was doing. I was reading and I was finding all these words I didn't know, and sounding them out and wanting to know what they were. So of course, I went to my mom, which was not the right place to go to with these words. I come from a very conservative, extremely conservative, small town where nobody talked about sex. It was completely taboo to talk about sex. In fact, so much so that I'm surprised any children were actually born into this community. And I started asking my mom what these words meant, and it was, instantly relegated to the black sheep of the family. She wouldn't answer. She told me to stop talking about such things, never ask anyone these questions. And so, of course, once I was told I couldn't ask these questions and I needed all the answers. And those questions stayed with me until between 4th and 5th grade, where I found an old copy of Alfred Kinsey's book, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, and started going through that. And while I didn't understand all the science and stuff like that at that age, I was starting to get some answers, and it was also fueling more questions. And so as I went on, my journey went down a lot of different avenues, but the idea of the science of sex was always in the background. And eventually I went and obtained my Ph.D., and now my whole life is studying sex from every angle possible. And yes, fell into the topic of sex robots recently, and kind of exploded from there.
Yeah. So your mom told you don't ask any questions. Then you said, I'm going to go get a doctorate where my whole life is asking the most intricate questions possible on this topic, Mom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes, your refusal to provide me with answers will set me off on a journey that you absolutely don't want me to go down.
Right. So. Well, you honed the curiosity in the right way. Could some folks go the other way with what they're told not to do, I guess. So,
I've never been that person.
Yeah. So the article that caught my attention when I was looking through your work was literally titled "The Age of Sex Robots." Now, personally, I'm into technology. I'm an engineer by day, software. So AI, machine learning, all that stuff has always been super interesting to me. That's my my trade. But so so the article. The article, and I started digging into some of the things, and it's super interesting because, first of all, it's the impact on society. I don't, and that's what we're going to kind of get into, because I think it's both very amazingly interesting, taboo, scary, exciting. I mean, you can add all these different, I would say, adjectives to describe this area. But I guess in general, like just maybe summarize the basics of the article, and then we'll kind of dive in and kind of dissect it, because I think it's a ton of stuff to unpack here.
Yeah, I've always been interested in AI in general. And every now and then in my interviews, because I interview hundreds, not thousands of people about their sexuality, and every now and then sex robots would come into it. And I thought, you know what? This isn't very well explored. Maybe I'll write something on sex robots. And then after I wrote it, I'm like, I am not going to publish that because it's too novelty. And then I thought, oh, all right, I'll publish it. Maybe one or two people will find interest in it. It'll be a little bit fun. I had no idea what door I was opening by publishing that. In 2 days, in a couple days, over 200,000 reads, something like that.
Wow.
My inbox filled up with emails about it, more than I can ever possibly read and certainly respond to. It really touched something in people, and it completely caught me by surprise. So of course now I have to research this. But just people in general, forget sex robots. People in general are both interested and terrified by the idea of AI, even though we're a long way from, the AI humanoid robots you would see in Ex Machina or Blade Runner, anything like that. But yet there's a fascination and a fear going around about it, and that includes, sex robots. I've talked to a lot of people just with humanoid robots that they don't even want to talk about it. It terrifies them too much. And yet I've talked to some tech people, and they're saying for us to get to that truly advanced state of humanoid robots, we're looking at like 2050. I've had a couple tell me 2025. I don't believe that it's only 5 years away from that. What do you think? You're in the field of software.
I'd say, yeah. I mean, at least 2050. I don't think. I mean, first of all, when artificial intelligence is one thing, then artificial general intelligence is the next thing. AI is the way I look at robots and things like that. It's like, okay, AI is one thing, right? You can have like the IBM Watson and things like that, where it's just a massively powerful computer with amazingly, really cool AI software. And it could, it can understand voice and respond and look up things and understand, dialects and know every language in the world, and just, literally answer any question because it has an amazing database and search criteria, all that stuff, and play chess and think on its own. That's one thing, right? That's just kind of like the software, the brain. But when we're talking about robots, now you're introducing an entire physical element where you have limbs and articulations, and that's much harder to do in reality. So I don't think the software is there yet, although it's getting there, right? And I think we will get to all of this. I really do. I mean, just a matter of time. I mean, I don't think anyone would say, "Oh, we'll never get there,"
agree.
But I think you start with the software, and then you add the physical, the hardware elements and these robots. If you look at it, the facial expressions, like making a human face truly, articulate itself where you could not tell the difference between a human and a robot is so. I think that's a ways off. I just, there's so many muscles, and it's just even in video games. I enjoy PC gaming and other games. It's like, is amazing as, and there's no physical articulation there. That's just pixels on a screen. But even the faces still aren't quite there. So now take that and then add the physical element of something I can touch and feel and look at, and these robots, you're going to be able to kiss them, right? I think that's a ways away, but I do think it's going to happen. There's demand out there, and it's a fascinating area, so it will happen. But I think I don't know, 2050 and beyond, I'd say, if I were to guess.
Yeah, at least I'd agree with that. I mean, the most advanced humanoid robot we have right now is Sophia, and amazing, absolutely amazing. I had a opportunity to meet Sophia.
Oh, you did? Okay.
A while ago. I didn't. I had the opportunity at University of Minnesota, but I had an engagement that I couldn't break, so I didn't get to. I wish I had. I would still like to meet Sophia, but Sophia's not going to pass a Turing test.
Right. Yeah. Right.
You're right. The facial features. No, it's not. Yes, there are facial features. There's movement in the face, but it's not going to be mistaken for human. Sophia can very easily get put in a position where she answers in a way that's not consistent with the way any human would answer.
Right.
So yeah, we're a long ways off, and that's Sophia. I mean, sex robots now, they're not even close to what Sophia is. They're, just really advanced sex toys at this point, barely animated. In fact, Harmony is one where it's, at least the last update that I had was only the head is animated. The body's not animated. And even so, it's, still quite a ways away from even where Sophia's at. So yeah, again, not passing any sort of Turing test.
Right. Now, Matt McMullen, he's the guy that kept coming up when I was reading about this. Is he Sophia or is he Harmony? Which I forget.
He's Harmony.
Harmony. Okay. Oh yeah, I have it right here. Okay, got it. Yeah, he's an interesting. Yeah, he did seem. I mean, a lot of these folks, when you look into what they're doing, and they seem very. They don't seem like these weird, basement dwelling kind of people that you'd think. They just seem like very well adapted. I'd say folks that are just adding. They feel like they're just creating a product that society wants. Right. I was a little surprised by that. Maybe my own bias, got in there when I was starting to look into this, expecting to just see, I don't know. Just some of these weirdos just creating this stuff, but they're brilliant entrepreneurs, many of them, at least that I've seen. It just didn't seem like they were, didn't seem like they had adjustment issues, or I don't know. They just seemed more normal than I would have thought, and very interesting technology as well. So,
oh, absolutely. The people who created another one is Samantha, who has been designed and once again barely animated from what I can tell, but been designed to be able to supposedly converse. I don't really see it as true dialogue, but supposed to be able to speak with you about philosophy, for instance. Has a family mode where it can be with the children and talk about different things. And but yeah, it's not there. But you're absolutely right. I do believe we're going to get there. I mean, we're a long way from Jude Law's character in AI.
Yeah.
But it will get there.
Yeah.
It will, and that's why I think this is something that scientists need to start researching now and not just pass it off as some novelty topic that's undeserving of research, because we need a baseline. What are the attitudes now? How are people thinking now when it comes to sex robots? So we have that baseline when they are here and they are in popular use, perhaps, then we have something to go off of.
Right. And it's I look at this as more as, there's going to be pushback, from
Oh, sure.
society on any new
Yeah.
technology, right? Even okay, so cars,
Right.
self-driving cars, they're coming as well. I think much sooner
Right.
than these robots. But but the societal pushback is really pretty much, I would say, just about safety, right? If these things are safe
Yeah.
and my children get in the car, I don't have to worry about my teenager getting into car accidents anymore. Everyone's going to be on board. Eventually, cars will not have steering wheels. I fully believe all that. Now
Yes.
now that's a societal impact of that technology. Relatively, again, relatively straightforward. But it's taken us a while to even get there. Now I think and this is really, I guess, jumping into your article and where this gets complicated and is and you've done tons of studies which we'll get into too on this topic, but I think seems a lot more complicated. It's are we hacking are we hacking relationships? Are we hacking the individual bond between a man and a woman or a man and a whatever? Now this seems a lot more complicated to me. Are you cheating on your spouse or
Yeah.
your partner with if with a robot? Like there's all these. In fact, that's the first study I'd like to actually get your take on. You did that initial study where you asked, I think, I don't know how many, but you asked married couples if they had walked in on their spouse, having sex with a robot, what their thoughts were there. How did that turn out?
Well, I actually haven't started formal studies on any of this yet. Everything I've done is just informally
Okay.
talking to people. And so when I went to write this article, I asked like 5, 6 married couples that I knew personally a few questions. And the first question was, you walk in to the bedroom and your spouse is having intercourse with a sex robot. What are your feelings about this? And across the board, they just saw it as an advanced sex toy. Um, really didn't put human characteristics to it. Their only concern was, and this was after they thought about it for a while, their only concern was for if their partner would develop some sort of an emotional attachment uh, to the sex robot. Though they were having problems articulating that, because if they see it as something, as just an advanced sex toy, the question of, well, would you have an emotional attachment to any other sex toy, a vibrator? And that opened up a whole discussion. But when I asked, was it infidelity? No one could give me an opinion on that. They didn't know. It was something they hadn't thought about, something that they couldn't even offer an opinion on. And so, and that's what I'm saying. We need to start really looking into this and get that baseline.
Right.
Where are people? Where are the attitudes towards this kind of stuff right now? So yeah, the main concern, apart from just fear of AI or humanoid robots, the main concern was emotional attachment. And so immediately it made me think of Sternberg's triangular theory of love. And Sternberg put together these 3 interrelated but distinct components of love: commitment, passion, and intimacy. So could a human fall in love with a humanoid robot? So commitment, could they commit to a robot? Sure, that's quite possible. What about passion? Could there be passion? Yes, that could be programmed into the robot. And intimacy, certainly if you're having a committed carnal relationship with this humanoid robot, yeah, intimacy could play into it. So is it possible for a human to fall in love with a humanoid robot? I would argue yes. It is possible. And if we look at even these very rudimentary sex robots that we have now, are there people that are in love with the current generation of sex robots? Yes, there are people that when you speak with them, they will say they do have a relationship with their sex robot, that it is a loving relationship. with their sex robots. So the next question is humanness, and I had been invited to be a theorist on a project at the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, several years ago on the idea of humanness, and meaning what are the ideas and the meanings that we attribute to what it is to be human, and these are anchored in both in personal experience and embodied in emotion. So can we see sex robots as having characteristics of humanness? Well, certainly not at this point. And especially emotion. None of these have emotions. And even Sophia, who is as advanced as it is, she's always asked, "Do you feel emotions?" And at one time she said no, and now she's saying she does. She's been programmed to feel emotions, but she doesn't feel emotions like a human feels emotions. So that alone negates any possibility of Sophia demonstrating humanness. So the question here, and maybe the one that I'm most interested in with all this, is, can a sex robot ever be an authentic substitute for a human partner? And how would you test that? Because yes, we have the Turing test for AI, but what would the equivalent of the Turing test be for a sex robot?
Right. I mean, almost like you would have to test with human subjects and see if the human subjects could determine if that other thing was a human or a robot when they were engaging in whatever. Right.
Right.
You know,
that's what it would have to be.
Right.
Yeah. All right. You have sex with this person, and then you have sex with this other person. Which one's the robot?
Right. It's check carbon or silicon. Yeah. Which is it? Yeah. Right.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and if you, another way to look at it too is, we're calling them sex robots. How about eventually 20 years, 100 years, 200 years, they're just robots that do everything we do with us, including have sex, right? So there's almost a different spin on it where they might, it's a different kind of take on the whole thing where they're not just things to satisfy this one area, but it's just like, because I was looking at a bunch of, man, it was I don't know. I was watching a bunch of videos on and I think it was what's his name? Yeah, Matt McMullen, the CEO of, I guess he's CEO of Realbotics and Real Doll. And I don't remember the exact. It was a documentary or just some YouTube clips around. I mean, it was pretty well done production wise, but and they were kind of taking a journey through a few folks' life and their connection to their dolls. And I mean, one of this old man, older, I don't know, he was like 60s, 70s, whatever he was, but he was just, I mean, truly caring for this doll. I mean, putting makeup on her and just, he was an engineer and he was so upset because her arm wasn't working right or something wasn't articulating, and he was like tearing up. And she's like, she deserves better than this. And it's like, half of me was like, well, he seems like such a passionate, caring, like, person, but but the other half of me is like, whoa, but I feel like it's misplaced. Like, where is his relationship with his, I think he was married as well. Like, what, that's got to be affected. Does he have children? What happened along the way where, and maybe that's just a short-sighted view on it, but I feel like something went wrong somewhere where he's not getting this in the human realm. And maybe that's just short-sighted. Maybe this is going to be more normal as we go forward, but I'm a little skeptical there, but, not sure. But I guess my point is he just, I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, wow, it was equal parts fascinating and sad, at least to me. Not sure how others would have viewed it, but he was just, it was kind of crazy, but,
Right. I interviewed a person who, for anyone that has seen the movie Lars and the Real Girl, that's yes, it's a very quirky movie, but that stuff really happens. I interviewed one gentleman quite a while ago, who he has a relationship, and we're not talking about robots. We're talking about blow up dolls.
Mm.
And you wouldn't think him to be, strange or anything like that. Speaking with him, he has this relationship with a blow up doll. He's fine with that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I would imagine there's some level of psychosis somewhere. I mean, because because I think there's probably and again, I'm not at all qualified to make that statement, but I'll make it anyway.
Right.
And I'll caveat it with, I feel like there might be something there. That's because I don't know, nor am I trained to know. But I'll make my typical. I'm not a doctor. Please see your own therapist for a psychiatrist. In fact, but it seems like, and going back to you were asking those 6 couples, did you feel like it was cheating? I feel like there's a continuum where, and I'm trying to bridge the psychosis comment I just made with like whether or not it's cheating. I feel like the closer you get to the actual, actual being human, meaning, they walked in on their spouse and they just thought, oh, it's nothing more than an advanced sex toy. Now, what about when it's really not? You really almost can't confuse it with an advanced sex toy. Like, say, okay, now you take because they were probably picturing, when you asked them that question, you walk in and it's like a glorified blow-up doll. I'm guessing that's what they imagined. I don't know. However, what if you walked in and both your spouse and this advanced, robot, like, covered up themselves, and the robot looked at you and said, hey, dude, get back. Get out of there. Come on, we're busy. Like, he got real upset and nervous as if he would. Now tell me how you would respond. You know what I mean? So I feel like this is a continuum where the closer they become to more, to be almost, unrecognizably different than a human. I feel like the response as to what would you think about your spouse having sex with a robot, I think that response would be more visceral, and I think a lot less, binary as it's just a robot, or it's just a sex toy. That's where I think it's going to change a little bit as things progress.
Yeah, and it brings up a lot of different dynamics. Mm-hmm. For instance, what about the time where a spouse recognizes that their partner is able to do things with the sex robot that their spouse won't do? How is that person going to feel about that? He or she is getting it from this thing, and they're not getting it from me. Now, is that going to be a positive or a negative? Okay, they want this sexual outlet that I'm not willing to engage in. Fine, they have an outlet. Or is it going to be there's some connection there, a sexual connection that I'm not a part of?
Right.
There's also the idea of talking about threesomes. People interested in sex robots because they can add it into their sex lives and have a threesome, which may be a good alternative to having a third human in there, where there's a lot of dynamics that can get messy. That would not happen if with a sex robot, perhaps. And then Coverola and et al. Did a study about bordellos and sex robots with people that participants that frequented bordellos. Yeah. What were their attitudes towards having sex robots, advanced sex robots versus human? And there was a general consensus that if you went to a prostitute that was human, that would be cheating on your spouse, whereas it wouldn't be if it was a sex robot. So there's lots of different dynamics and nuts and bolts to look at in this topic, and it's just a matter of doing it.
Yeah. And for me, it almost seems like a lot of the stuff I ran across, and you made the point, because you broke down kind of the pros and cons of introducing sex robots into a society. That's kind of what I read at top level, and I think you had mentioned one of the pros was for those who can't find human partners, the sexual and emotional bonding with AI may satisfy them, which certainly makes sense. But in that theme, I feel like the quote unquote pro is kind of, I would say, prevalent in a lot of the reading I did, and but what I kept going back to in my head is, well, what there's a reason you're not bonding with other humans. There's a reason you're not, whether it's sexually, emotionally, you're something's going on there that I think you maybe should work on, or we should try to better ourselves. And and I think I had said this in the so the notes I had sent you, but I feel like this robot's just going to short circuit all that work, and the robot. Yeah. So is that necessarily a good thing? I think there's probably.
Well, I mean, there could be disability issues. There could be maybe the elderly was brought up to me recently, that spouse dies. Not going to move on to a new relationship. Maybe a sex robot could be eventually be the substitute in that situation. So those are situations where I could see that sex robots would be a pro, an easy substitute, perhaps.
Right.
In those cases. But then there's technosexuals, where their sexual desires are focused on gadgets and technology and sex robots and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's their sexuality. That's their desires moving toward that. So that's something very different from them wanting, sex with a human. They want sex with a robot or with a gadget. That's their focus.
Oh, interesting. So in this case, the sex robot is not replacing anything. It actually is the goal. It is the target.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Now, do you see these robots as more of a, I feel like there's two sides to, a sexual relationship, an intimate relationship. There's a sexual side and the emotional side. And are these robots, I mean, do they fulfill kind of both equally, or is it, and how does like a male or female thing? I would guess, and you can certainly, throw darts at this, but I would imagine males are more into just the sexual aspect of or they would, I guess, value this, just the more physical / sexual aspect of the dolls, where the female humans would, I would say probably appreciate probably the sexual as well, but put more weight on the emotional attachment side. Is there any truth to that?
Well, the few studies that are out there that I've read on this, their participants showed that men are more apt to partake in sex with a robot than the women in the study were.
Not surprising.
No, not surprising. Schutz and Arnold had a study that came up with that finding, but they also had another one, and they couldn't understand it. They said it definitely needed more research done. They found that millennials were less likely to be interested than older generations, which seemed counterintuitive to me.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think I said that in the notes. I said, really? This is interesting to me. I said, would not have imagined that.
Yeah, but they have in their article, it's like, it seemed to take them by surprise as well. And they listed as a limitation, we definitely need more study to understand why this is, or to replicate and see if other findings are the same, that older generations are more likely to partake in the use of a sex robot than the millennial generation. Right.
Well, one thing I thought of when I read that is like, well, you'd have to for that stat to really be, I think, a true, I don't know, check kind of the scientific control box. It's almost like you have to ask the millennials. You have to ask the older generation now, say they're in their, 50s and 60s, and then you have to ask the quote-unquote millennials now. You have to wait till they're 50 and 60 and ask them the same question, right? And it's almost like, or is it just, because I could almost, argue that, hey, well, millennials are younger. They're not locked down yet to any one sexual partner. They're probably having more fun out there, and they're like, robots, who needs that? Gross. Whereas some of the older generations like, yeah, man, that'd be cool because, God, they're a little more in their rut, and they're maybe looking to, be a little more exploratory there.
Right. And the problem, yes, I agree that a longitudinal study of that sort would be beneficial. However, there's going to be a skew to that study because if we take it a baseline now to where the older generation is interested, the millennial generation is not, by the time the millennial generation gets to, into their 50s and 60s, well, then we may have the advanced humanoid robots that we're talking about. And so their attitude and their opinions about it are going to be skewed by the existence of these versus the older generation now that does not have an opinion based on existence.
Yeah, no, great point. Yep. Yeah, I mean, like you kind of like you've said before, it's somewhat research is needed, and it's just hard. I just feel like there's such a stigma through all this. So it's, I mean, is that why you think
sex?
It's right.
Every aspect of sex has a stigma associated with it.
Yeah. Now I feel like that's slowly. Well, I'll ask the question: is that slowly becoming less of an issue? I mean, if you go back to the 40s, 50s, 60s, right? Obviously, you didn't, they wouldn't even show two people kissing on television now, and you come fast forward to 2020. I feel like that infrastructure, that kind of stuffiness is breaking down. Do you feel we're headed in that direction?
Well, I do. I mean, we're certainly more open, transparent than we were in the 40s and 50s, but we're still, we still have that foundation of the Victorian age sexual ideals underneath us. People, yes, it is more open. You do see sex everywhere, but people are still uptight. They don't want to talk about it. They're ready to stigmatize anyone who has any sexual desire that they don't.
Or like two people talking about sex robots.
Or two people talking about sex robots on a podcast.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, there will be those who will stigmatize us for even talking about it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm sure if my mother hears this, she'll be horrified. And I told you to stop asking these questions.
Right. You just won't give up. No, it's interesting. I mean, you would think. I mean, it's literally how every single one of us came to existence, and yet we don't want to talk about it. It's the irony there is pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, it's only supposed to be for procreation, right?
Well, that was one of my comments I made. It's like under the general discussion points. I just said, I said, is the point of procreation no longer the point, right? But maybe, and I said, I think this has sort of left society a long time ago. I mean,
for some people,
yeah, right. Because we're just, But what's interesting, the whole thing, it's just, again, it's not just a sexual outlet for just guys to orgasm, for example. There's this entire emotional aspect of it, which is, it's a lot more prevalent than I thought. I'm just thinking, sex dolls, a bunch of guys just want to do their thing and move on. But it's a lot more than that. I mean, it really is. I mean, just the work that you're doing and others, it's like, okay, well, there's, you mentioned some of the use cases of the elderly or disabled. Like there's actual, if you could take the stigma away from it, there's actual utility here for people to live better lives, perhaps, So it's not just about some dude in his basement that wants to just get off, which is
right. And there's novelty, something new for some people that just, they hear about it. There's an interest in it. It's a bit Coolidge effect, getting a little bit of novelty in there. Some people will never accept it. Some people will. I'm sure it's going to be, let's just say 2050. In 2050, it's going to be highly stigmatized. Just as anything new is, forget the sexuality aspect, the technology aspect of it. There's the fear of new technology, as we were talking about earlier.
Right.
When the horseless carriage came into being, that was the end of civilization for some people.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so now if you look at kind of putting on a dystopia hat on and thinking, okay, how does all this go wrong? And I mean, I guess at some point regulation would be, first of all, is there, I guess taking a step back, how big is the demand here? I can't imagine these things are super well funded just yet. I mean, is there,
No.
if you get, I imagine if you got like a Jeff Bezos or, someone with, their net worth is well over starts with a B, right, in the billions, and you go hundreds of billions. I mean, and they wanted to just throw a crap load of money at this. I would imagine, Amazon in 5-6 years would have some killer, 2-day shipping of some killer robots. How, of course you have to have Prime though, but how well funded is the industry in general? I mean, that's because where this.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I'd love to talk to Elon Musk about
right,
it.
right.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how well funded it is. I don't know. There could be something that's very advanced out there that we just don't know about yet.
Yeah.
It's a matter of time. As you and I both said early on, it's coming. There's no running away from it. It's going to happen. And there's going to be cons. There's going to be social problems because of it. But the question is, who's going to do the oversight?
Yes, regulation. Yeah, that's what I was actually getting to next. Yeah, I mean, because I had written a small blog, a couple sentences to you when I was going back with my notes. It's kind of like, and you had mentioned it as a con, right? Though I think you had phrased it somewhere as this could be an outlet for some folks that would just almost for certain folks to practice their sexual assault. In a sense, and that wasn't your exact words, but there was something to that. And what if the robot could be programmed to, scream, no, stop, don't? That's pretty scary to think about that, right? Now it's a robot. You're thinking it doesn't hurt somebody, but does regulation come in there or?
Well, it's an interesting idea and something we definitely. This is why we need the research, because we need to start thinking about this stuff now. Right. There's the idea. Okay, so. If there is, when it comes to anything sexual, right. If somebody can make $1 on it, they're going to try to make $1 right. on it. So let's take, all right, the question that comes up is child sex robots for pedophiles. Now the question is, would this satisfy them so that they don't actually move their predatory practices into the social realm? Or on the other side, would this just fuel them and give them some sort of an empowerment to move their predatory practices into the social realm? We don't know. Now the question is, do we regulate that? Do we say, no, you cannot create a child sex robot? Okay, well, who's going to do that? Because if you can make $1 off of it, someone's going to do it behind the scenes.
There'll be a black market for it for sure. Yep.
Absolutely, there would be a black market for it, and that's the scary part. We don't know what would happen if you had something like that.
Right. In essence, you're almost. I could see one side saying, "Well, you're almost saying it's okay to have sex with a child because you're literally enabling them." Yeah. The other side would say, "Well, no, it's keeping them away from my actual children. Let them do that." Right. Yeah. Oh man, that's a sickening.
It's a slippery slope right there, because I mean, if you actually create something that would empower them, where maybe they would not have moved into the social realm with these behaviors, well, then you've opened up a door that shouldn't have been open. We don't know. Yeah. That's the idea that there are researchers out there that would think that this is too much of a novelty or a silly topic to research, so we're just not going to touch it. Well, if this is coming, and we do believe it's coming, it's not novelty, and it's not silly research. I don't think, is any research really silly if it advances anything at all?
Right. No, yeah, exactly.
The advisor for my master's degree worked primarily in sex research, and decided, you know what, I want to do a little something different, and had done a study on hauntings and ghosts from a sociological perspective. And if I'm not mistaken, took his fair share of criticism for having done this because ghosts don't exist, and therefore it's a silly novelty study that's beneath your title. I disagreed with that because he was looking at it from the perspective of people who believe they had seen ghosts.
Right.
So it definitely a valid sociological study. And I think the same thing's true here. We do have, despite them being very rudimentary at this point, we do have sex robots. You can today go out and buy a sex robot if you want to. I think they're around $10 to $12,000, perhaps, somewhere in that range. But they're here.
Yeah.
They're not at the point that they're going to be, but we need to start looking at these things, for the potential social problems that could be opened, as well as the benefits. And there's many benefits, potential benefits, and there's many potential horrible things that could happen.
Yeah.
So, but once again, it all comes back to, this idea of oversight. If I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but as a matter of ideology, at least I think you subscribe to libertarianism.
I think I'm all over the place. I consider myself a more maybe slightly right-leaning centrist, but libertarianism is, if it could work in reality, I'd be all for it. I think this, I'm a big fan of get small government, get the, I don't like the idea of I don't think, in fact, I shouldn't say I don't think, I'm very, very confident that a group of people, call it a government, call it whatever you want, owning, having a lot of power just never works, right? It's called tyranny. It just doesn't work, that the individual making decisions and being liable for themselves, both, being, all their successes and all their failures, I think is a better way to approach just living in a society. But there's caveats on all sides. So I'd say short answer, yes. I think that's a decent way to describe me, but I almost hate just putting a label on it because it's like there's just landmines everywhere. But yeah, I don't hate the idea.
That's why I don't subscribe to any political label for those landmine reasons.
Yeah,
as well,
guess what? We don't have to. We're not running for office, but I can have a little of everything, and that's kind of where I'm at. To be honest, I mean, I kind of like a little of all things, but generally speaking, if you start talking to me about how the government should grow and be bigger and have more power, I automatically go, whoa. That doesn't, they're all humans, right? That are in power? Okay, that's not going to work. So,
Okay, so yeah. From that perspective, with, liberty and personal freedom being kind of the benchmarks of libertarianism, yep. What is your perspective as far as personal freedoms go with this idea of sex robots and oversight?
So I'm being interviewed now. I love it. You spun this up. No.
Well, it's what I do. Yeah. I'm far more comfortable as an interviewer than an interviewee.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the question. My gut is, so I'm a little bit of a weird case because I definitely have, some legacy, and I don't see legacy to mean it's gone, but I was, I have a foundation, a Christian belief system as a foundation, which I'm always trying to, I'd say, sort of adjudicate that with kind of just me looking forward to things, if that makes sense. So the libertarian side of me would say, just if there's no externalities and you're not hurting anyone around you, then do whatever the heck you want. Right, buying a sex robot and putting it in you and enjoy and you having a better life, and it's not affecting anyone. Why would I care? Why would anyone care? That's kind of one way to look at it. Now, again, we talked about some of the things where regulation might need to come in, and this is where the landmines start. Right, where are you buying a sex robot that looks like a 7-year-old girl? I mean, I just get my fists start clenching even just making that sentence. Right. So I don't know. This is why I would never want to be in politics, because someone would have to make a decision there. But and I think as people, as if person X wanted to get a sexual robot, I would say, well, okay, but make sure it doesn't just mask some of the things that you're not getting with humans. Do you need to work on the relationship with your spouse? Because getting a sex robot, and again, I almost want to just call them robots. Getting a personal robot, is probably, there's something you're looking for that you're not getting. You gave some great examples about some folks with maybe disabilities or some elderly. Like, okay, those are certain things that you cannot satisfy in the real world. There's really nothing to work on there. So I have less issue with that now. If there's things that you should be working on with your relationship with your wife, with your husband, your spouse, your partner, whatever, your children, I would rather not. That these robots to just just cast a giant shadow over that and mask all of that and just kind of like patchwork, But again, I think that still goes back to the individual freedom. Well, that if you want to do that, great, but maybe education is better. It should be talked about. And hey, when you buy this robot, what are you really doing it for? Hey, maybe we should talk about what you're trying to get with this thing versus not force anybody, just kind of sharing and educational, something like that. I don't know. So I guess short answer, I don't think I have a problem with it, but there's probably a million landmines that I'm not thinking of.
Million landmines.
Yeah.
There are. And forget the sex aspects of it. You can look at it if we just look at robots.
Yep.
In any family dynamic. I mean, there's going to be what happens when one partner likes the cooking of the robot more than their spouse's cooking. Right. What happens when the children the children like the robot more than me because the robot's fun, but I'm the one that has to dish out the punishment.
Right. The robot's full of energy and never gets tired. Well, I do. I'm human. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The robot doesn't have to go to work.
Exactly. Right. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to enter this age at some point. Let's start thinking about it now.
Yeah. Right. Well, for you, obviously, you have a passion for the whole. I mean, every element of what we talked about, so it's easy. But I can imagine folks that just aren't generally interested in could easily just poo-poo it and say, that's like you said, it's novelty. Let's move on. But I think it's odd. I think you're right. I don't think that it is novelty and we're going to move on because it's just going to continue. AI technology, robotics is just going to continue getting better and better and better. And there's just a desire for one, intimacy between humans, two, sex between humans. So there's no way that technology evolution and the two other, the other two, human needs, I'd say, emotional and sexual, are going to just not meet. They're going to meet 100%, and we are going to have these amazing things that we interact with on a daily basis, and whether they're picking up the kids from school or they're cooking food or they're satisfying a sexual need, that's coming. I mean, that is coming. I think it absolutely is coming. Crazy.
It is, but it's exciting. I mean, I'm a bit of a technophile. I mean, any new technology I find to be exciting, or at least even when it is something that's potentially opening up a vast array of social problems, I'm interested in the discussion.
Right. Yeah. I think we all should be interested in it. And then just because you're right, you keep putting your head in the sand and saying it's not coming, it's novelty. Yeah, it's not going. That doesn't help. That's not going to help us. It's not going to help anyone. It's not going to go away.
It's suddenly going to be here, and we're going to be like,
right.
"Oh,
Dave was right."
Well, what do we do about all this?
Remember that podcast we listened to 27 years ago? Holy crap, those guys!
They're
were onto it.
They're going to pull this 100 years from now. They're going to pull this out of some file on a computer, and they're going to go, "Oh, they were so advanced."
Maybe they were robots. Maybe they weren't even humans talking.
and look at all the hate mail they got for even talking about it.
Well, we can just say we're just two sex robots talking about it. Anyway,
we're just ahead of our time.
Yep. Well, David, so we got about an hour here. Let's wrap this up. So, where could folks find you, sure. and how? I know you actually do, like I said, you have an entire support system where you let all folks to reach you via email, and so just kind of summarize what you got going on, where people can find you, and what you do.
I want people to reach out to me. It's something I tell my students as well, that if you have any question about sexuality, I don't care what it is. I'm a person who has never judged anyone for for their sexuality. Not that I condone everything, of course. Like you said, my fists clench too when we get into issues of non-consent.
Mm-hmm.
But I want people to come to me and talk about it. I don't want people to go out into the world with the questions I had. Those questions should be answered for everyone. And I have people every day asking me questions about sexuality. So you can get a hold of me. I am writing a column for Psychology Today, just started last month, called This Sexual Self. And you can get in touch with me through that at thissexualself@gmail.com. That's a very easy way to get in touch with me about any aspect of human sexuality. If you have a question, if you have a comment, I try to answer as quickly as possible. The whole sex robot thing kind of clogged up my system, but apart from that,
okay,
I try my best to get back to everyone.
Very cool. Okay, yeah, and I'll include those links that you just mentioned in the show notes so folks can have easy access. But well, David, I appreciate your time. This is super interesting chat. I mean, it's like you said, this is coming. It's unavoidable in my opinion. So let's start having the conversations now. And I'm so happy you were able to just give me an hour of your time today. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to talk to you about all this.
Ditto. Thank you, David. Have a great weekend.
Take care. Yeah,
be
safe.
Bye-bye. And that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. This is Unlatched Mind. See ya.